first of all, we have something special.
We have something special because, of course, with just over 48 hours to go before the polls actually open and we, the people, decide who we want in government, we have brought in 6 of our People's Panel. It's lovely to see you in person. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. We've got Thorum, we've got VJ, we've got Amy, we've got Hilary, and at the back, we've got Colette and Cameron. Now, we're going to speak to half of you a little bit later in the programme. But firstly, we're going to start with 3 of you here in the front. Sorry, Thorin, we're going to talk to you later. So, we're starting off with Anna.
Anna, you're 23. I know you're worried that, that some young people aren't going to come out and vote. And what do you think would make the difference for you? What would persuade you that voting is the right thing to do in this election?
Well, I think for a start that everyone should vote on principle, but I think for many young people, they're just feeling completely uninspired. If we look at the last election, fewer than half of 18 to 24-year-olds actually showed up to vote. So I actually think that this time round it could be a lot lower. And I think as well, for many of the friends that I've spoken to, for many of the major parties that are on offer, we're feeling unrepresented, and we're feeling as though that they're not actually speaking to us young people or really actually putting themselves forward in a way that inspires young people to actually get involved and want to have their vote. So I think my main question would be, for those political parties, what are your main priorities in actually standing up for young people and getting our voices heard and putting us as more of a priority?
What would you like to hear more about?
I think especially housing's going to be a big one. You know, I'm a young adult myself, and I've recently turned 23. For many of my friends as well, I think a major concern is, will we actually be able to get on that the housing market, and also being at the early stages of our careers as well. How are they actually going to support us with that? It's so much harder now in the job market to even, get your first job. You've got having a degree is no longer enough. You've got to have so much more experience. So I think many of these things will be top priorities for us.
And do you think there's anything you've heard so far that is making you go one way or another?
I think my major concern is what we've seen from the Conservatives especially. I was a long-time supporter of the Conservatives, and I think from what I've seen, you hear so much of these sound bites from the media, but you see a lot of these politicians, they make promises and then they break them. So for many of us, especially young people, we feel very lied to, and actually we'd like to see someone who actually sticks to what they say and stands up for what they believe in and their principles.
That's fair enough. VJ, you are from Dartford. You've got 2 young boys, so you're a parent.
Yes.
Is that the big issue for you? What is it that's going to sway your undecided vote?
I mean, for me, a lot of it is the cost of living crisis, and that seems to affect everything. And really, I would like to know which party is actually going to do something radical, because we need to see some radical change in the way things are being done at the moment. And I think it's shocking to see the price of food going up and, the hospitals with the NHS waiting list. And really, I feel that we need to see some radical change. But you've got the Tories who've been there for 14 years. And essentially, I look at and listen to Keir Starmer, and all I hear is Tory light. And I'd like to hear, a bit more.
That's interesting. So when you say something radical, what would that look like? Like, do you? Because at the moment, for instance, I think there might be some Labour supporters who think, where's the tax going to come from? Like, normally, previous elections, you might have heard the Labour Party say, we're going to raise taxes on those with the broadest shoulders to help those perhaps with the cost of living. Is that the kind of thing that you feel like you haven't heard?
Exactly. I haven't felt that from the Labour Party and also from the Liberal Democrats. I do feel like I've heard that from the Green Party, actually, where they're talking about we need to be honest and we need to raise money, and their idea is to raise it from the top 1%. And I like a lot of their ideas. And again, some of the things that they're talking about, the environment and how that's a really important thing to us. But with the political system that we have and the first-past-the-post system, I don't want to say vote for the Greens and what feels like a wasted vote.
Interesting.
Brilliant.
Interesting.
Now, Hilary, the whole point of our People's Panel was to find undecided voters and talk to them about how they were deciding to vote, what issues mattered. But I think I'm right in saying that you've shifted from being undecided to actually casting your postal vote yesterday. Now, I know it's always rude to ask somebody how they've voted, but if you want to tell us, that would be...
No, I don't mind at all. I have voted for the Liberal Democrats.
My goodness. Was that because of the bungee jump?
No, I had already cast my vote by then, but
would it have changed your mind?
No, it's already gone. But the reason being, I got to the stage where I did listen to various debates and things going on, tried to be a part of, you know, the political life, although I'm not a political animal. And all I hear is the party leaders, both Conservative and Labour, talking about each other and telling each other what they haven't done. It's always detrimental. Nobody's got anything good to say. And to be quite honest, like has been said, all you get, to me, it seems like a lot of lies. I don't know whether the Liberal Democrat leader is, shall we say, more professional in his manner, but he comes across, to me, as a genuine person. And I feel that I cast my vote for somebody that I feel I can believe in. And with regard to his different, you know, issues, I'm very concerned about the national health.
And if he was going to coalition with Labour or Conservative, which would you rather he was linking up with?
I don't think that would work. It didn't work the last time. And
Good
I don't
answer.
think it would work this time. I think there's too many clashes of personalities.
Yep.
Right? But I truly believe that whoever is the leader needs to keep to their promises.
Love that.
Brilliant.
Hilary, thank you so much. And Amy and Vijay, and we'll talk to the rest of you.
See you later.
8:45. Right, let's address all of that with the Mail's Andrew Pierce and the Mirror's Kevin Maguire. Well, they gave you a run for your money, didn't they?
Well,
Their political analysis.
They did.
But that's a snapshot of conversations that are going on around the country. Breakfast tables, workplaces, outside schools. You know, people go down the pub for a drink. That's what's happening. And everyone's approaching it from their own direction.
But there was a thread there, wasn't there, that people are just fed up with Labour and the Tories knocking the spots off each other.
Negative campaigning.
Negative campaigning and not putting forward on either side really the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We know that from what the Institute of Fiscal Studies has said about both the manifestos. Neither of them are facing up to the great big financial black hole that's coming.
And we tried yesterday with Jonathan Ashworth and James Cleverly, Labour's campaign guru, the Home Secretary, because we'd heard from the People's Panel saying, give us positive. They found it very hard to stick to positive messaging without going back to the old attack.
You especially with Jonathan Ashworth, he just couldn't help himself. He just kept going off the leash and putting the boot in on the Tories. And look, fair enough.
James Cleverly did the same. In all fairness, what happens? If you ask a Labour person, they want to answer about the Conservative. You ask a Conservative person, they want to answer about Labour. You ask Nigel Farage, he just gets, don't ask me questions. In a way, just listening. Ed Davey's strategy has perhaps been the most successful with all these... silly stunts, but they work. They get him coverage. People quite like him from whether he's thrown himself 5 times into the lake or he's doing a bungee jump on 140 feet.
Or a Zumba class, in fact, yesterday afternoon. It's positive. It's a positive image.
It is.
It is a positive image. Yeah, but let me ask this question. I know what Rishi Sunak is saying. He's basically saying, don't trust Labour, they'll raise your tax.
Yeah.
I know what Keir Starmer is saying, time for a change. I'm not totally sure that I know what Ed Davey's political messages, as opposed to the stunts. I wonder, are the stunts too dominant?
No, well, I think they've been very successful on the problem with our rivers and the pollution in our rivers.
And social care.
And social care. And, of course, he can relate to that because of his own disabled child.
But you're right, Ed, because he isn't a contender to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
There's going to be 2 people who'll be Prime Minister. It'll be Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak from Friday morning. So they get... quite rightly, more scrutiny.
And we heard from Hilary, she doesn't want a coalition.
No, I don't think she's going to have to worry about that, looking at the opinion polls.
The 2 people who are likely to be the front-runners for Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, the current Prime Minister,
That's very hesitant, likely.
Well, currently the polls show Sir Keir Starmer is likely to be the Prime Minister.
By a country
Rishi Sunak,
mile.
however...
In interest of fairness, it's not over until all the votes are cast and counted.
As Rishi Sunak himself would say.
The football analogy.
It was very interesting, wasn't it, that yesterday, and it's quite often in these interviews where they're not actually the political interviews, but they're more what we'd call the sofa interviews, where Keir Starmer told Chris Evans on his radio show the point at which he switches off work. Let's have a listen. Andrew, it's an easy attack opening for the Prime Minister then, isn't it? Who sets his alarm super early this morning and says, I'm never off. I'm out at a Luton warehouse, you know, working for the country. You'll never see me switch off at 6 p.m. Is it reasonable to say it's OK to have family time?
I think it is, actually. But I know, but I think that Keir Starmer will discover when he's Prime Minister that quality time with his kids will be invaded constantly because I'm afraid international affairs don't stop. Hang on, Kevin.
You're right.
But also, I know that his wife is of the Jewish faith, and it's after 6 p.m. Your family time.
It's so weird, though. I mean, I just don't understand this. He did an interview a week or so ago. I'm not sure which newspaper it was in. And he said that Vic's dad and his family came from Poland. He comes over on a Friday night, which he does quite frequently. He's 95. We will do Friday night prayers. They have, because his wife is Jewish, and they want their kids to know about their heritage. They have Friday night dinner where the dad comes over and they have prayers. Why wouldn't he say that? If he'd said that in the interview with Chris Evans, everybody would say, oh, well, that makes total sense, rather than clocking off after 6.
It's odd that he didn't, and I don't know why he didn't.
It's because he doesn't like talking about himself.
But he wants to be the Prime Minister.
I know, but nevertheless, some people...
He did talk about himself. He talked about himself as a dad. He talked about prioritising his children.
And he's having to, but he doesn't like it. He said when he became an MP and rose to prominence in his mid-50s, all of a sudden he's having to talk about his mum and dad, which he'd never done in his life. It's just his mum and dad, and he still finds it
But the Prime Minister would not be having a go at Keir Starmer having the Jewish tradition of a Friday night dinner every Friday night and not working while he's having the family dinner. But Keir Starmer doesn't say that. There's an ambiguity, and suddenly we're having this stupid row about whether you should have Friday nights off.
And Sunak would be respectful because he's got his own Hindu tradition, he's got his own temple.
Faith is really
in number
important
10,
to him.
And he worships regularly, and it is important.
And he probably wouldn't then be out at a Luton warehouse this morning.
Exactly.
Rishi Sunak knows. I think the Conservative Party have made a mistake. And I don't think they're overtly anti-Semitic on it, but they would have known. You can't be in politics. You can't be in Westminster.
I don't think they did realise.
You can't. No,
I don't think they did realise that. But the Tories, perhaps they should have. But
I think that Keir Starmer left it open for them because he starts talking about the kids doing cheerleading or going to the judo or whatever. It's not about that. It's about an absolutely standard Jewish tradition of a Friday night dinner, which is everybody respects.
My neighbours are Jewish, and you never see them after 6 o'clock on Friday, ever.
Would the Conservatives had a go at him if he said, I like to have Sunday lunch, Sunday dinner with my family every week? And I remember when my kids were younger, we used to try, and that was the one time we'd try and eat together. Failed miserably, it's got to be said, because other things came in. But that's. But I think it's nice that people try and make family time.
But Rishi Sunak spoke out so clearly at the weekend against the racist slurs against his family with great authenticity. I just don't believe Rishi Sunak in any way would be doing some kind of dog whistling thing.
Not, because he's in an election campaign, he's got desperate.
No.
And every time you see a little chink, you just go... No, I'm not saying he's being anti-Semitic. I'm not saying that. He's not thought it through. He's just thought, there's a little chink so I can just get piling without stopping and thinking himself.
And I can tell you, David Cameron was very keen on quality time with his children at number 10. I mean, people would often go and have dinner in the flat.
David Cameron spent his whole time playing video games on his own.
Exactly.
What was that? Was it Angry Birds?
Yeah.
On his own?
Yes, he would sit and play Angry Birds. Video games. I mean, you know.
But people would often go to the Downing Street flat because they'd been invited to the Prime Minister.
This is David Cameron who went to the pub.
He's cooking dinner.
Left his daughter in the pub because he forgot.
He did.
You see, the trouble is, Michelle on email.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fuming Keir Starmer saying he doesn't work past 6 p.m. on a Friday. I'm an unpaid carer for multiple people. I work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year with no respite. I don't know what a weekend is or what holidays are. And all I get paid is £81.90 a week. These politicians are so out of touch.
I think they should clarify it.
I think the care issue, and unpaid carers getting that allowance, which is means tested as well, and it's appallingly low, is an issue. But does she want everybody else to work 24 hours, 7? If she's got neighbours who have time off, does she want them not to have time off?
No, she wants people to acknowledge that some people cannot switch off at a certain time of the day, rather than just say, I'm able to make that choice.
Well, I think if you asked Keir Starmer that question, he would answer, it is terrible. Some people have more work, hold 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs. Look, it was a part of it. Because he can't say every time, I'm going to address every issue, doesn't mean he doesn't care about them.
Can we go back to VJ's point when we were talking to the People's Panel a moment ago? The Labour has not been radical enough. That the Greens are saying they want real action on tax. And the Labour is kind of too... essentially, that they sound too much like the Conservatives. Is that actually going to fail to motivate some voters in some constituencies?
Well, look at Gordon Brown writing Kevin's paper today. He's talking about children and how they've got to sort out child benefit. He's talking again about this benefit cap on child benefit. He is absolutely incensed that Labour are going to continue with that cap. And that is a view held by many people, and I suspect a lot of the panel think it should be lifted. The benefit cap is popular. They have been risk-averse, too risk-averse.
The benefit cap, we've left this out in the debate, and I think people say, well, if you can't afford children, don't have them. And I always say, well, hang on, could you do without your child credit? You probably couldn't. Your family allowance.
Also, you might get into trouble after you've made your decision to have more than 2 children.
No, I think Labour should have been bolder. Now, the strategy was always to get as big an alliance as possible, because the bottom line in an election is to win and get into power and get people to vote for you. And if you begin to be more radical and bolder, which I would have liked to have seen Labour to be, you might attract some people, but then you put others off. You've got to say at the moment, that's why they can say the strategy is successful.
And how about Anna's worry that actually the turnout is going to be low because young people are not going to come out and vote, they're not inspired to believe that the issues which young people are caring about, particularly around housing and jobs, are not being talked about? I mean, do you think this is going to be an election where young people come out to vote?
Well, I hope they do, because they should, because it's important. And I can still remember the excitement of voting when I was 18. Really excited. It's a big moment for me. And even though I pulled my older brother, who I was voting with at the same time, because I didn't vote the way I should have in 1979, he said, how could you possibly have voted Tory? How could you have?
Really?
Yes.
I wish...
We're not saying they should. It's not the same as whether they will.
But they should. But perhaps, I mean, are politicians addressing young people's issues? Housing has to be the biggest issue of the lot. And issues at universities, some universities where you're still having online tuition.
Yeah.
But I wish more young people were like Anna and had that commitment and engagement.
It was really brilliant.
Because one of the reasons...
I'd say she'd be a good candidate next time.
One of the reasons...
Get Anna on the stump.
Anna for PM. You know, one of the reasons...
Hang on a sec.
I've just jumped
slowly.
You've got to aim high. Let her dream. But one of the reasons young people don't get heard as much is because they don't vote. Now, you could say it's the responsibility of politicians to engage young people, but young people also have to shout loudly, wave their arms and make sure they are heard.
The conversations that I have with young people, and it's interesting because I think Hillary referenced it, is when people say, but I'm not a political person. And I think if you've got one issue that you don't need to be a political person, but everything is political. We've already discussed, haven't we? You know, the NHS is political. Paying your bills is political.
Social care, big issue.
Political. So if you've just got one issue that affects you, just see what each of the individual parties are saying about that issue, and then that can help you where you're going to, you know, how you're going to vote. Yeah,
vote for the one that's best for you and your family, your neighbours, your community, the country, the world. And if you don't think one's really good, then vote for the least worst. But vote. And like, if you think they're all terrible, go to the polling station, spoil your ballot paper. But at least that way you have participated and you will be counted.
Meanwhile, Hillary did successfully get a postal vote. Yeah. But unfortunately, a number of people have not, because Royal Mail is criticised by the postal minister himself for failing to deliver votes in time. Extra staff are being drafted in to work on election night to make sure that ballots are collected from postal sorting offices and reach counts before the polls close. According to the Daily Telegraph, they've discovered that voters in more than 90 constituencies, including those of cabinet ministers, have raised concerns about their ballots failing to arrive. And, of course, in Scotland, it's in a way more significant because the Scottish school holidays are earlier. They were at the end of last week, so a number of people might be on holiday.
Yes, I think they are in Northern Ireland too. No, look, it's a basic foundation of democracy. It's the one time we're all equal. We all get a vote. You've got to have your vote. There's another 5 million plus people not on the register. I think there's 8 million overall who are not on the register or incorrectly on the register, so they're at the wrong address. That's a huge swathe of the country that's just disenfranchised. I think there should be a greater drive to get everybody on the register and to ensure everybody can get their postal vote and go and vote.
So Rishi Sunak says a late Bellingham goal turned it. It's not over. 48 hours to go. He can still be Prime Minister. Is there any chance that something can happen in these final 48 hours to shift these polls?
No.
Could he do a gesture, a Jude Bellingham-type gesture? Or could Keir Starmer do that? And it could mean that actually...
The significant thing about this election
is polls are skewed.
The polls haven't really moved at all. That's the most significant thing, because normally there is a contraction that whoever's in government, they tend to narrow the advantage but it's not happened this time.
George Osborne was saying to me yesterday that he speaks to loads of cabinet ministers. Nobody understands why the Prime Minister went for the early election. There'll be huge rows about it afterwards.
They're happening now. And remember, he presented it as a fait accompli to the Cabinet. So there was no discussion. The election is going to be on July the 4th, and if anybody wanted to have a discussion, I've already seen the King.
Can I
so
also...
because of our constitution, done deal.
Can I ask about advertising spend? Reform UK, £1 million of advertising in this final week. I have noticed, as you open the papers, a lot of double-page spreads. It was flooded, apparently, with £400,000 of donations in 24 hours, the party. And the membership doubled from 30,000 to 60,000. How big an impact does that have?
It's huge, and especially at the expense of the Conservative Party, because Farage is talking about immigration, where the Tories have manifestly failed on immigration. He's made it an immigration election. They've had huge problems over weirdo candidates, there's no doubt about that, but it's a huge factor. I don't think they'll end up with many MPs, but they will deliver a much larger majority for Labour.
It's a split on the right, isn't it?
It is.
And Labour, because most people who are voting Reform
Labour, but mainly on for the Tories,
and it'll benefit Labour. But about a quarter of people will have already voted now, postal votes. They're in, and they've got in.
If they get
a quarter
them.
Yeah, where I think about 20% of people have postal votes, but they have a higher turnout. They're in, and that's it. You know, it's cast, and it was very interesting looking at where the leaders were campaigning. Keir Starmer was on the offensive, going after seats in Buckinghamshire, while Rishi Sunak was defensive, trying to save seats in Oxfordshire.
This money
he can't be Bellingham. He couldn't do a bicycle kick. I suspect he couldn't ride a bicycle at the moment. He'd fall off it. I mean, everything is just going wrong for him.
But Ed Davey would return that to his advantage.
Oh,
he would. Well, we saw him riding a bike.
We have got the evidence that the bungee jump was actually inspired by a different Ed.
Ed Balls.
Here is Ed Balls challenging Ed Davey to do the stunt. Let's have a listen.
We're going to give you the choice, and we'll ask Good Morning Britain viewers what they think. Skateboarding or bungee jumping, which would you choose for your next stunt?
Bungee. I think bungee jumping, because you come back up.
Good. Well, in that case, you've got 4 weeks, and we can't wait.
You heard it here first, if that's the next stunt. So, Ed Davey, thanks very much. It was the 4th of June, and yesterday we saw this.
Did I hear him shout "Fujitsu post office scandal" as he went down?
He said...
Because he was the
He was the minister, the first one, who declined to meet
this has been a great distraction strategy from the post office.
What did he say? Do something unexpected, vote Liberal Democrat.
Do something you've never done before.